Sawadee krap, namaste. Today we have a very special meeting among four of us here today on the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi or Bapu Gandhiji. And today these three individuals are Professor Kothom Maria, who of course work for Peace and Culture Foundation. We have Professor Chirapat Prapan Vithiya from Sanskrit Study Center of Silpakorn University, and we have Peace Information Center of Thammasat University professor with us here, Ajahn Chaiwat Sathanan. Namaste to all of you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Now, today, of course, it's very important for us because we, all over the world, in fact, that they are celebrating all Mahatma Gandhi 150th birth anniversary. And this perhaps short video clip that we are taping today is going to be used among students and others also. So I would like to ask you the very first question that we can go for our conversation today is that how should we remember Bapuji or Mahatma Gandhi? If I can start with you, Ajahn Chaiwat Sathanan.
Are you sure you want to start with me?
Yes.
My way of reacting to that question is slightly odd because I think there are many ways that one can remember a great personality of the world such as Bapu Gandhiji. And I would rather remember his opponents in life. And I think there are four of them who are in their own ways quite remarkable. You can mention Winston Churchill, who disliked him intensely. You can mention Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the leader of Pakistan. You can mention, of course, B.R. Ambedkar, who is the leader of the Buddhist movement, and of course, Nathuram Godse, who assassinated him. So I think one way to think about the greatness of a person is to understand why these people do not like him, or really, I don't want to use the word hate him. Churchill, of course, because he was the representation of the defeated empire. And Gandhi, I think, put an end to the greatest kingdom on earth at the time. For Ali Jinnah, I think he disliked him intensely because I think he stood, Bapu Gandhiji stood against the idea of divided India. And he, of course, would want to have the creation of Pakistan as we see today. Ambedkar disliked Gandhi because of his idea that a greater good, I think, is more important than a smaller one. So for him to have a position for, not to have the position of the untouchable of the caste system, I think called into question the democratic process that Ambedkar championed. And therefore, he went into Buddhism as a revolt against Gandhi's idea. And Nathuram Godse. Godse disliked Gandhi because though Gandhi helped India gain independence from the British, but Gandhi ended up with a divided subcontinent, with the creation of Pakistan, and also because I think Godse believed that Gandhi gave in too much to the Muslim. And so he took the life of Gandhi. So if you look at it this way, then the greatness of Bapu could be defined by all these four acts of reality.
Are you suggesting that when Gandhi embarked upon the journey of nationalist struggle movement, it wasn't easy at all? He was facing basically a lot of challenges and so on. And of course, you mentioned the British Empire,
right,
which of course very ironic also that today's Mahatma Gandhi statue is somewhere nearby.
Right.
Winston Churchill, who once upon a time called him half-naked fakir.
Right.
Then you have the Ambedkar on that Dalit things and so
Right.
on. Then you have Muhammad Ali Jinnah on the partition,
Right.
and then Nathuram Godse, which is of course a kind of extremism at that time.
Right.
So
Right.
he was basically facing a number of challenges
Right.
to come up with that sort of idea. So to understand him,
Right.
you also need to understand what he was struggling with and so on.
Right.
That's
Right.
correct.
And that defines how great a person is. And I mean, apart from that, one has to see the way in which he went through the struggles and paid for it with his life. I think that's a measure of a man.
That's a measurement. This is, of course, not to mention also that at that time there were also socialist ideas,
Of course,
Marxism's
of course.
ideas, and so on and so on.
The HRSA, I think, was very much against him, and the bomb and everything.
Ajahn Chirapat, you just received the presidential award on disseminating Sanskrit studies, in Thailand and also in a number of countries in ASEAN as well. And would you like to reflect something on how should we remember the Mahatma Gandhi on this special occasion?
Well, I'm a Sanskrit scholar. I only talk about Sanskrit in connection with the teaching of Gandhi. Gandhi actually, in the beginning, he did not interested in Sanskrit at all. But when he read the article by Thoreau, who say that Bhagavad Gita is the jewel of the East, and it is the best teaching that human beings should follow. From that time on, Gandhi has started to study Bhagavad Gita thoroughly, and he remember one sloka every day when he go to bath. And I find that he make use of Bhagavad Gita thoroughly. For example, I just want to quote one sloka. Karamanyeva tikaraste ma phalesu gadachana ma karma phala heturapu ma te sangos tava karmani, which means you have the right to work, but you don't have the right to claim the fruit of your action. But you have to continue working. But you can see that Mahatma Gandhi has followed this teaching for his whole life in the struggle for the justice, for the mass, and for the freedom of India. He never accumulate wealth for himself. He do everything only for the nation, for the mass who are suffer from injustice, maybe from the rule of British. Not only this, he have very firm faith in God. Whatever he do it for God. So this is also the teaching in the Bhagavad Gita. So when we see that Bhagavad Gita is relevant for the world, and it is revealed that whatever practiced by Mahatma Gandhi is the truth that we can get from the Bhagavad Gita.
I think this is very important because Mahatma Gandhi himself learned so much while struggling for independence, and of course the ideas of ancient philosophy that would of course strengthen his stance, like ahimsa and satyagraha and so on, would come also later on. His experience in South Africa and so on. So he relied also so much on what you call ancient philosophy of India.
Yes.
And he also, as you mentioned about Henry David Thoreau, that he also learned from other people like Tolstoy, Ruskin and others. So this is something that shaped him and make him quite prominent, to that period of time, to basically using ancient civilization to somehow end the so-called injustice of the British Empire as well.
That's why he said that my life is my teaching. Because the life he teach, he never teach anybody, but he followed the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. It means if he learned his life, it means that he learned Bhagavad Gita also.
Right. This is something we always see before leaving Gandhi Simriti in New Delhi, that my life is my message and so on, right? Okay. Now, Ajahn Gautam,
Yes.
the very same questions to you. You have been working for peace and of course you have analyzed many conflicts also. I have been watching you very closely for a long time and so on. Now, for you, how would you remember this great man, Mahatma Gandhi?
First of all, I think he is a great teacher. I love many of his teachings, especially Ahimsa and Satyagraha. We can talk about that later. At the same time, I think that he's a man of history. He's the one who made what I shall say a peaceful revolution, successful one, by his creativity, his innovation, and his strong will. So, in this respect, I would like to think of him as the one who create a new and modern method to solve conflict, very violent conflict.
I like
And
this.
he applied,
Yeah,
thirdly,
when you say a new model to solve conflicts, right?
Yes.
Could you elaborate more on that?
yes, what he proposed is of course non-violence. And he has been able to prove for me beyond doubt that non-violence is a more powerful force to transform society. So, as a teacher, first, as someone we can learn from and also follow his example and apply his teaching to our present day.
Okay, that's very nice to hear that, because a lot of people tend to remember Mahatma Gandhi. Not a lot. Some people would say that, would criticize that, Mahatma Gandhi is of his own period. Mahatma Gandhi was of his own context. Today, things have changed a lot, but you are going against those criticisms by saying that he in fact provides basically new model to solve conflicts.
Yes.
So my next point to you all is that how relevant is Gandhism in terms of philosophies and practice to the world conflicts that we are seeing today? There are a number of problems that we all are facing, whether it's global warming, ethnic conflict, inequality, and many kinds of things that of course each government tries to solve on its own, on regional basis, or even on multilateral basis. So anyone would like to shed some light on the relevance of Gandhiji to today's conflicts?
Yes, I follow on what Ajahn Gautam has said, and I think he's so right that Gandhiji was extremely innovative in facing all the problems. And to understand the relevance of Gandhi's in today's world, I think we could go back to Gandhi himself when he spoke with the villagers. And they asked him, what are the problems that he faced. One of the things that I think is most important and needs to be put on the table is that Gandhiji is a problem solver. He's not a theorist. He is not a pragmatist in the normal sense. He combines both, and come up with what Ajahn Gautam has said, a creative way of engaging in conflicts. But if he, as a problem solver, what are the problems facing him? And he would, put his hand up, left hand he said spinning, untouchables, women, Hindu-Muslim relations, and drugs and alcohols among the Indians. He said to deal with these problems, 5 problems, the risk is nonviolence. Now, to understand this in the 21st century means that one has to take into account the way he characterized the problems of, the 20th century that he faced in that period. I would say the idea of spinning that he was talking about is sustainable economy. He was fighting against the British, imperialists in a way that makes India dependent in terms of the economy, in terms of politics and everything. So spinning becomes a way in which independence is characterized by, sustainability and self-reliance. I think these are extremely important. The untouchables. Untouchables, I think, for Gandhi, I think one of his greatest battles is to face Hindu culture at the time squarely and call into questions the aspect that he thinks caused a problem. And for him, that's why he changed the term of the untouchable into children of God. Harijan. And this problem, the women problem, if you look at today's world, yes, you can count the number of women politicians in world parliaments, in India parliaments, and you have Indira Gandhis, you have many others, but that's not, you have to see also the fate of women in India itself at present. If you look at the rape case, and you see how women still remain the victims of some kind of violence at the time. Hindu-Muslim conflicts. I need not put too much emphasis on this, but this is glaring, and it again blows up in the Kashmir conflict, in India's country, in the attempt to rebuild, for example, the Babri Mosque by some Indian politicians at this time. And then the problem of drugs and alcohols, I think this is still with us today. So if you look at all of these problems, you see how relevant Gandhi's thoughts about these problems is. And then his indicator or his affirmation that the risk is nonviolence, and that comes into a larger answer to the world's problem, because he is trying to make us aware that if we do not move along the nonviolent route, then what we will end up is we will be drowned in all of these problems combined. All kinds of bias, all kinds of prejudice, violence of all. One has to fight all of this by using nonviolence. The other thing which I think is important is that he defines this as problems of violence as well. So violence comes in so many forms. It's not only physical violence, but structural, cultural, and others. And nonviolence is the antidote to all this. That's how relevant he is to today's world.
As I recall, when he wrote Hind Swaraj on the ship, I think it was very clear in that by removing the British Empire, you don't just put an Indian in replacement of that. You have to be very concerned about the structure, how it would bring about justice in all aspects and so on. And I like the term that you mentioned of the word sustainable. And today, the United Nations is, of course, trying to encourage all the countries to come at the agreement on the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and other kinds of things. So, in a way, one can also say that he was much ahead of time, and he was predicting that by going bits of things separately, you will end up with a number of problems, because end of the day, you want to see things in a very holistic perspective. And that's why when he talks to school teachers, he talks to a number of people, it was reflecting that end of the day, all entities, all kind of issues are actually dependent on each other, and very much that they have what you call a nexus within within that kind of view that he saw it.
So in this sense, I would say that Gandhi is a supreme realist, not an idealist as a lot of people have thought about. And the reason is because what he sees is that he sees the reality underneath all kinds of phenomena that one faces at the time. And when he look at it that way, then he also see the connection between all of this. And that's why, the solution, the nonviolent solution, doesn't mean only physical attributes, but also cultural nonviolence, the way in which you feel towards the others. All these are part of his solutions in dealing with the problems.
อาจารย์จิรพัฒน์ do you want to
So I was always impressed the way he make use of the Bhagavad Gita. The success of Gandhi, it is because he follows strictly the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. I will give you one example. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that if your mind always thinking of sensual pleasure outside, your mind will be attached to that object, and it will lead you to destruction at the end. So before starting the Satyagraha, Gandhi had to make himself strong in the mind. So he start by restraint from having sexual relation with his wife, which is a Vaarta in Sanskrit. That means a vow not to have sexual relation with woman. And not only that, he also become a very strict vegetarian. He won't allow even his wife to have a soup prepared from beef, even though she was suffering very hard, nearly dead. He will not allow his wife to take that, because in Hinduism, especially the Gujarati people, they are strict vegetarian. So he take out his wife to his home, and he tried to use the water therapy to kill his wife. And another example is that at the end he live only on fruit, no cooking. His fruit is only banana, raw groundnut, date, and olive oil for his whole life. So that make his mind very strong in doing anything.
And also, I think one could also say that, as I had read about his lifestyle and so on, he was very mindful, very concerned about what he consumed and how that would affect other people and so on. When he talked about village economy, when he talks about employment and other kinds of things, he was very concerned, and coming back to you again, that my life is my message, is something that he insisted that if you want to be sustainable, if you want to move ahead with a number of conflict resolution and so on, you should be the one to practice that first. That's right. อาจารย์โกธม
Yes.
I don't need to talk to you about the conflicts we are facing today in the world. Okay,
Yes, there are many of them.
There are many of them, and of course, now how would you basically can we employ the new model of conflict resolutions, what you said before, of Mahatma Gandhi to the today existing problems?
Begin with a kind of message I got. All of us know that Gandhi think that truth is something like God. But by you is the one who denied there is no Gandhiism. I'm not going to create a new sect. And this, I take it as having the meaning that there is certainly absolute truth, but I'm not the one who possess that absolute truth. I'm only the one who seek my way by listening to others, to my friends, to my rivals, to my critics, to try to understand what truth is for them. So I'm going on my journey. And you also should go on your journey. You will find different settings. You will find different obstacles, difficulties. But that is the way to seek truth. And then to answer more directly to your question, I would like to refer to one piece of teaching known as 7 sins, 7 social sins. I think this is very modern as I understood them. What are the sins? The sins are something that is threatening our society in the days of Gandhi and also in our time. The threats come from where? From force, from power, and from misguided principle. So what guidance he is giving here? First, he talks about politics with principle. What does it mean? I think it means that we should not use politics as real politics. You see, you have the number in the house, and you can conduct any politics you like. This is what you may call real politics. But on the other hand, I think Gandhi also is addressing not only politicians. We always think that blame them. Politics with principle also applies to citizens and ask citizens to be more active as well. Second, sins or second threat is coming from money. We know that money is all powerful. So Gandhi said, sin is business, to conduct business without morals. This is a second sin. What does it mean? I understand that business should not really apply what you may call the law of jungle. Instead, he proposed, already Dr. Chaiwat mentioned, you see, a kind of self-sufficiency or sustainable development. But I first start with self-sufficiency by his own practice of Gandhi, you see, producing local clothing. And he did it himself all the time. I saw a kind of picture him spotting, I think, cotton, you see, for his own use. But now I joined Dr. Chaiwat about sustainability. This is a strong threat. If we do business without morals, we don't care about consumer. We try to entice them, you see, to consume more and more. We sell them billions of smartphones, and they are nice consumers, addicted to the new gadget. So we should think about equitable economy for future generations. And this is my translation of business with morals. And the third point, if you allow me a little bit of time.
Okay, if you can.
Okay, he spoke about well-being without work.
That's right.
Work is a very important component that make a person a full person, in my understanding. You need to work. I think he's addressing to those wealthy people living very comfortably on rent, on what has been acquired in his or her past generations. No, he needs to work, not to acquire more wealth, but to acquire dignity. And reversing the phrase, I would say that work should bring about well-being. So no work without well-being, no well-being without work. These two sets of the principle he said was applicable. And I think nowadays we have to think about, I don't know, several hundreds of billion people who are working in a very, very difficult conditions. They all need to have decent work. They did also have a well-being as the result of their work. I pass on the number 4. He said, education without character. And I understand that we, especially in our country, we have a very big problem of education. We did 1, 2nd, 3rd reform of education, and we are going around and around, unfortunately. But what does he mean by that? In my understanding, education is not only about training your thinking or your skill. It is also about your feeling. It's also about your values. So you need to have education properly designed to form a full person with character. Next is science without humanity. In our country, we are talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we, so to speak, drop social sciences and humanities. But remind you, science is to serve humanity. So be careful of the new threat. I mentioned 1 or 2. I think robot and artificial intelligence is a real threat to Homo sapiens. How shall we cope with that? And secondly, climate change, pollution. Science did not find adequate answers to the questions that we are facing. So science, first of all, should need how to serve humanity in total. And then number 6, fun without responsibility. This is interesting to explain. Fun here means leisure, not doing things bad. You should just enjoy yourself without responsibility. And I think that we need to have a balance. You can have fun, leisure, but you can also do that with a certain kind of social responsibility. And I come to the last one, and important this point, religion without sacrifice. And nowadays, sorry to see the state of the world, you see, some sects of Islam fighting against another sect, some group of people using religion for some kind of political leverage, and so on and so forth. So religion, you see, is very important and can create very strong emotion that lead to confrontation and violent confrontation for that matter. So Gandhi, I don't know whether he foresee this modern conflicts or not, but he said religion should be with sacrifice. You have your belief, that's okay, but that belief should be translated into action to serve others. So I think, you see, all the 7 points Gandhi raised are so relevant in the contemporary world.
I quite agree with you, and of course 7 social sins, in fact, when it came to Mahatma Gandhi, was through a friend when he mentioned it in Young India, if I remember correctly. And you elaborate on every single sin and how they all are relevant to today's world and so on. Regarding individual responsibility, which of course some scholars would call it, enlightened anarchy that Gandhi employed, by saying that one day you might not need the government also, because everyone is morally responsible on what his or her action is all about. Concerning inequality of income, inequality of wealth, and so on, he did discuss a lot on trusteeship and well-being, about self-village, about decentralization, how to let people decide, and religions and so on. So I believe these all are very much relevant that we are seeing today, and we definitely need to rely on so many practices that he did, his philosophy, to make sure that we strengthen multiculturalism in our society and so on. So with this, before I end, if you would like to add anything else on Mahatma Gandhi?
I think we in the 21st century will continue to face fascinating choices, both as an individual and as a society. And I think if there is anything we can take from Gandhi to help us walk along this path of fighting against existing violence, extremism, and others, I think it is wise to listen to Gandhi's advice. And one of the best Gandhi advice that I had been given by my teacher is what people call Gandhi's talisman. And Gandhi's talisman is that he said, when you face the difficulties in life, when you face the difficulties in making a choice, you think of the face of the poorest, of the most downtrodden, of the most marginalized face that you can imagine. And then you ask yourself the things that you will decide in your life, in what ways would that benefit that face, that person? And the answer will give you a way out. So I think Gandhi's talisman, I'm of course not quoting that exactly. I'm quoting that from memory because that's the talisman that was given to me, and I try to, whenever I face difficulties in my life, personally, politically, collectively, then I sometimes call upon Gandhi's talisman and then ask myself, the kind of thing that I choose to do, will that benefit that face that I could imagine? And I think that was such a marvelous way of leading us kindly light into the new century. And that's what Gandhi means to the world.
Okay. So with this, if I may now end our conversation on Mahatma Gandhi, or Ajahn Gautam, you would like to say something?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Oh, please go ahead.
Okay. You see, Gandhi, at least the message I got, is telling us life is a struggle. But the first principle is in all religions. Thou shalt not kill. And the second is do not do to others what you do not want them to do unto you. Do you want to be killed? Do you want to be hurt? No. So don't kill, don't hurt others. But what kind of struggle is this? It's the struggle to be able to separate the action from the actor. The action is bad. You try to stop the action. But you did not kill the actors. You must persuade, coerce, do what you want, possible, to allow him to change his mind and deeds. And then, when I think of Gandhi, I think of 2 or 3 key words. The first one is love. You cannot achieve this kind of struggle without love, and you cannot do it without discipline and determination. And last, the example of Gandhi is the man of self-sacrifice, which is not easy, but it is also very important if you want to journey along your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you to be here, and definitely we have a lot of work to do in Thailand also, how to cultivate non-violence and good principles of love and so on, so that we live in peaceful coexistence and we see real prosperity, not only in terms of wealth, but in terms of respects to other people and so on. With this, may I now end it here. Thank you very much. สวัสดีครับ